My name is Lin Hao. I am 29 years old, a diving employee who is as good as a dog. Don't look at the job, that sounds cool. In fact, it's a hard work of selling. Every day, you can soak in the sea to help others break their copper wires, or find some coral pearls for money. The amount of money you make is almost impossible to pay for the rent. Today was another day when the 8-sized birds fell. The customer pointed to a broken reef and asked me to go down to find something rare shells. He said it was easy to hear, but in fact he wanted me to die. The water flowed in that place and the diving novice basically had no return. Lin Hao, don't let me lose my chains. If this phone is screwed up, no one will look for you later. Customer Lao Wang yelled at me with a smoke on the boat. I rolled my eyes, ignored him, put on my diving suit, jumped into the sea with an oxygen bottle on my back. He cried in his heart, "Is it okay if I don't fuck me anymore? At worst, I can go back to my hometown and go there like it." The sea water is cold and bone black, and the level of view is no different than being blind. I gritted my teeth and dived down. The searchlight in my hand shone out a piece of stone and seaweed, and I couldn't see any shell. Just as I was about to give up and turn back, I suddenly felt a strong suction force coming from under my feet, as if my invisible big hand was pulling me down. I panicked in my heart and looked down suddenly. Damn! A huge whirlpool was less than 10 meters below my foot, spinning wildly like a black hole, and the sand and stones in the sea were rolled in, making a deep sound of slut. What's this thing? I was so scared that I almost flew up and paddled up desperately, but the suction of the vortex was not something that humans could resist. My legs seemed to be tied up by an iron chain, and in the blink of an eye it was rolled into the center of the vortex. The last thought in my brain is, it's over, I really have to explain this time. I don't know how long it took, but I woke up in a daze and found that I was still alive, half lying on a sand beach, surrounded by dark rocks, and a fishy smell was everywhere in the air. My brain was still sluggish, and I got up and saw that the oxygen bottle was no longer hot, and my diving suit had broken several holes. My body was covered with wounds, which hurt so much. But this place is not the sea area where I just dived. Which is this? Undersea cave? Or is it a secret base? I was confused when I suddenly got a little bit of something on my foot. When I looked down, I saw that it was a strange ring, all blue, like a carved of some luminous stone head, with some incomprehensible flower patterns on it, like some ancient symbol. There was still a hidden circle around the ring, as if it was alive, which made my heart grow hair straight. What's this thing? Will there be curses or something if you pick it up? I muttered, but still couldn't help but feel curious and reached out to pick it up. As a result, the moment I touched the ring, a cold energy suddenly penetrated my body from my fingertips, as if the whole person was thrown into the ice hole, making me tremble. Then, a low voice suddenly echoed in the brain, "The Inheritor, I am the spirit of the sea god, who will give you the power to dominate the ocean and protect the secret of Atlantis." What? Sea god? Atlantis? I was stunned. What is this middle-second term? Before I could react, the ring on my hand suddenly emitted a blue light, and then I felt a strange force flowing in my body, as if I could hear the sound of the surrounding sea water, and even feel their direction of movement. I raised my hand subconsciously and slapped it. As a result, the sea water next to me actually followed my actions, suddenly rolled up a small wave, slapped it hard on the rock, and made a loud bang. Damn it! What is this? Superpower? I widened my eyes, completely unable to believe the scene in front of me. Just then, it was like a special effect in a movie. Why did I, a diving divest, suddenly become a sea god? I tried to slap a few more times, and sure enough, the sea water moved with my thoughts, and it was rolled into a whirlpool, and it was instantly like playing a game. Ha ha ha, I've achieved it. Who dares to bully me with this ability? I was so excited that I was dancing, and my brain began to fantasize that I could use this ability to win money and live a wealthy life. But before I could be happy for a long time, a horse suddenly came from afar, breaking the silence of this ghost place. I turned around and saw several speedboats driving towards me on the sea far away. There were several men wearing black suits standing on each ship, with faces full of faces, and a talker in my hands, as if searching for something. With a big bulb, wearing a black glass and holding a cigar in his mouth, he glanced at me, then picked up the talker and shouted, "The goal is right in front." The boss said, "You have to see people alive and see gangsters alive. Don't let this kid run away." What? I'm looking for me? My heart skipped a beat and I reacted in an instant. This helper was probably implicating me. But when did I offend such a big shot? Could it be that customer Lao Wang just now? No, if he doesn't have this ability, please do so many thugs. My brain flew quickly, and suddenly I remembered the ring and the power I had just picked up, and my heart sank. Could it be? What kind of treasure is this thing? Someone is targeting me? Boy, don't act. I'll hand over what you have in your hands, otherwise don't blame us for being rude. The big-headed speedboat had approached, less than 50 meters away from me. He shouted at me, and several subordinates next to him directly raised their guns. The black gun was facing me, making my head numb. Take your sister. I don't know anything. I was furious and felt a little panicked. This kind of helper is obviously not a good person. 80 mostly, some kind of powerful person. How can I afford to be a young diving employee? But if they really hand over the ring, they might still quit, and the dead will keep the secret the most. Don't eat toast. Turn on the fire. Guangying let out a big blow, and several subordinates directly pulled the trigger, and flew towards me with a swoosh. I was shocked and quickly slapped to the side. I rubbed my shoulders and slammed into the sand, swelling up a dust of sand. Damn. I really want to kill someone. I gritted my teeth with anger, but I knew that I was not a match, so I could only run away first. I suddenly plunged into the seawater next to me, sucked the instinct of the diving clerk, and quickly dived down, trying to throw this helper. But those speedboats were not going to let me go, and Marta sounded closer and closer, and even a few guys put on diving gear and jumped into the sea and chased after him. I can't run away, what should I do? I was muttering in my heart, and the power that controlled the sea water suddenly flashed in my brain. Yes. I have this ability. Are I afraid of being a hare? I will let you see it today. What is the wrath of the sea god? I bit my teeth tightly, stopped, turned to look at the speedboat chasing me, grabbed my right hand suddenly, focused my mind in the sea, and tried to adjust the surrounding sea water. The next second, a miracle really happened. The sea suddenly began to storm violently, as if some giant beast was moving under the water. Then, a huge wave suddenly rose into the sky, 10 meters high, like a moving water wall, directly slapped at the big and bright speedboat. Bang! With a huge sound, the speedboat was overturned by huge waves in an instant. Several gangs on the ship were photographed directly into the sea, and they didn't even have time to make a sound. When the other speedboats saw this scene, they were shocked and directly pressed. The driver yelled, "This kid is weird. Retreat quickly, retreat quickly. Remove your big man. Chase me." The big Han got up from the water, covered in blood, and shouted at his subordinates in a hurry. But his voice fell, and I swung my hand again, and another huge wave hit his position directly. This time, everyone was rolled into the seabed, and no bubbles appeared. Huh, it's great! I looked at the storm of the sea, and felt so happy in my heart. I was just chased like a dog, but now I have made this helper obediently with one move. I am not too awesome with this ability. But I was not so stupid that I thought this was over. There must be a big man behind this helper who was squeezing his waist, and he might be back soon. No, I have to run away and find a safe place to figure out what this ring is. I gasped and looked around and found that there was a secret hole at the bottom of the sea that was not far away, as if leading to a deeper place. I gritted my teeth and decided to take a chance. It would be a dead end to stay here. I swam quickly towards the entrance of the hole. The sea water around me became colder and colder and lower, but I could feel that the ring on my hand seemed to have some reaction, and the blue light flashed, as if guiding me in the direction of my progress. The entrance of the cave was pitch black, and you could hear some low sounds, like some creature was traveling, making people creepy. This place, does it really have anything to do with that Atlantis? I murmured in my heart, clenched my fists, and gathered my courage to swim in. No matter what, I have to live and find out the truth about it all. I gritted my teeth, clenched my fists, and swam into the dark hole. The sea water was as cold as a knife and shaved its skin. The sea god ring on its hand was getting brighter and brighter, and the blue light flashed in the darkness, as if it was giving me away. The surroundings were full of fear, only my own breathing and the occasional low and strange sensation. My heart was so scary that I always felt like I was staring at me in secret. Don't scare yourself, Lin Hao, you are a person who can control the sea water, afraid of being a big deal. I exclaimed myself and looked down. The entrance of the cave was getting narrower and narrower. The rock walls on both sides were filled with strange patterns, like a mixture of ancient fish and human figures, and some symbols, which were a bit similar to the flower patterns on the ring. Just as I was thinking, a glimmer of light suddenly appeared in front of me, as if there was something reflecting. I was delighted and swam faster. As a result, I just turned over and was stunned. Depend on. What's this? In front is a huge undersea space, with a few football courts. There is a broken ancient city in the center, and the city wall is covered with seaweed and shells. You can still see the grandeur of that year. There are collapsed stone pillars and statues from all over the city. There's also a huge sacrificial fortress in the center. There are a bunch of shiny blue crystals embedded in the sacrificial fortress, emitting a faint light, exactly the same as the light of the ring in my hand. Is this Atlantis? I muttered, and the whole person was so shocked by the scene in front of me that he couldn't speak. The lost ancient city mentioned in the story actually exists. My enthusiasm is so simple. But before I could wait for a few more words, the sea water around me suddenly stormed, as if something was approaching quickly. I felt tight in my heart, and I was alert and clamped my mind under my right hand, and was ready to adjust the sea water to counterattack at any time. As a result, the next second, a figure swam over the shadows around the ancient city, as fast as a fish, wearing a diving suit and holding a small camera in his hand. Who? I sniffed, and was ready to shoot the other person. But the man seemed to be unfair, so he raised his hands to signal me not to move, then took off his diving mask, revealing a young woman's face. Her skin was as white as porcelain, her eyes were as bright as if she could see through people, and an oxygen tube was biting in her mouth. Don't miss it. I'm not an enemy. She spoke, her voice passed through the diving transmitter, and her language was a bit urgent. My name is Xiaomei. I am an oceanologist. I have been studying the seafloor. I have been investigating this area for several months. Who are you? Why did it appear here? Oceanologist. I narrowed my eyes and looked at her for a few times, half believing and half doubting. At this age, who knows if the other party is equipped? But looking at her professional equipment, she doesn't look like Car's helping thug. I snorted coldly and said unhappily, my name is Lin Hao, a diving employee. Don't worry about why you come in. Anyway, you are not here to take your things. You said you are a student, what about the evidence? Xiaomei rolled her eyes and took out a bunch of documents and photos from her waterproof backpack. Although she couldn't see the details under the water, there were indeed buildings similar to those of this ancient city on those pictures. She pointed to the direction of the sacrificial ritual and said, what I studied was a treatise saying that this place was my discovery. The ring on your hand, was it from here? I was shocked and looked down at the ring, but I didn't expect that this woman's eyes were so sharp. But I didn't plan to lift the whole plate and hummed, what's wrong with you? What's the matter with you? Of course it's related. The little beauty became more serious. This ring may be the sacred object of Atlantis, and the sacred object contains ancient power. You just managed the sea water, I saw it far away, exactly like the power of the sea god in the past. If you are really the holder of the sacred object, then we have to cooperate. The secrets of this place are far more dangerous than you think. Cooperate? I curled my lips, feeling a little disdainful. Although this woman doesn't look like a bad person, I'm not the only one who trusts others. However, when she mentioned danger, I was a little concerned. After all, Carl's helping people chase me was still in sight. I sneered and asked, "What danger? Tell me clearly, otherwise I won't be able to talk nonsense to you." Xiaomei was about to open her mouth when suddenly a hurry came from her communication device. Her face changed. She looked down at the instrument on her wrist and gritted her teeth and said, "It's not time to explain it. Someone entered this area, and it is probably impeding us. Hurry up, go to the fortress with me, there is a cable there that can help us take off." "Damn, come again?" I said in my heart, but I also knew that I couldn't stay here for a long time. Carl's helper must have never died, and he may have already mentioned more thugs. I gritted my teeth and said, "Okay, go to the fortress first, but don't play with flowers, otherwise I will slap you to death." Xiaomei ignored my threat and turned around and swam towards the sacrificial abbey. I followed her, and the ring on my hand was getting brighter and brighter, as if responding to the blue crystal on the fort. As soon as I approached the fort, I felt a strong sense of pressure, like countless eyes gaze in the dark, making people's backs sway. "There is something strange here," I muttered in a low voice. Looking around the ring, I found that the fort was filled with dense runes, almost the same as the pattern on the ring. Xiao Meiji went straight to the side of the crystal, scanned something with the equipment on her hands, and muttered some arts in her mouth that I didn't understand. "Don't be slow, say something," I urged impatiently. As a result, the sound fell, and a deep sound of the birds suddenly came from afar. The sea water trembled violently, as if something was approaching. Xiaomei suddenly turned her head, her face turned pale. "Oh no, they came faster than I expected. It's Car's people." "Carl?" When I heard the name, Lima was furious. It was this guy who sent someone to chase me and killed me for a lifetime. I gritted my teeth and asked, "How do you know? What's the relationship with them?" "I have nothing to do with them." Xiaomei hurriedly explained, "Carl is a financial tycoon. He has long been eyeing Atlantis' treasure. My research team has been threatened by them before and forced us to hand over the investigation data. I didn't agree, so I hid in this deep sea and continued research. They must have discovered my traces, and now you are also targeting me. Damn, I'm tired of you." I was so angry that I wanted to kill someone, but before I could get rid of it, the sound of the birds far away was getting closer and closer, and dozens of black shadows appeared in the sea water, all of whom were full of diving equipment. Each of them was holding high-tech weapons in their hands, which seemed much more professional than the previous ones in Guangdahan. "Boy, and that woman, don't run away. Hand over the sacred thing, give your life." A guy in the lead shouted through the communication device, his voice as cold as ice, and he heard my skin numb. When I saw this battle, I also understood in my heart that if I don't try my best today, I guess I really have to explain it here. "You big guy. If you want to take my things, please ask if you can answer this sea first." I sneered, suddenly raised my right hand, and focused on regulating the surrounding sea water. The next second, a violent whirlpool rolled up from the sea, which was several 10 meters wide, like a huge flesh arm, and directly rushed towards the thug. Bang! Bang! Yuki hit them and instantly rolled several people in. The diving equipment was sparse, and the yelling sound was transmitted through the communication device, which made people feel goosebumps. The rest of the people were scared to scatter and open fire to me, but the boy was swollen under the water and there was no power, so I couldn't even touch my hair. "This kid is a monster. Call for reinforcements." The guy yelled, retreated to the back, and at the same time took out a signal device from his backpack and emitted a red light. My heart sank, knowing that this guy is definitely calling more people to come, and he must fight quickly. "Lin Hao, don't fight hard. The Supreme can help us." Xiaomei suddenly shouted, pointing to a groove next to the crystal, "Put your ring in, it should be able to activate the defense system." In the Atlantis saying, the sacred objects can wake up and protect the sea beast. "Sea bamboo?" My eyes lit up. Although I didn't believe it, there was no other way now. I gritted my teeth, swam quickly to the fortress, and pressed the ring against the groove. In an instant, a powerful energy was transmitted from the ring to the crystal, and the entire fort began to vibrate, with the blue light illuminating the entire underwater space. Rumor. A low growl came from the depths of the sea, as if some giant beast had been awakened. Then, the surrounding sea water stormed violently, and suddenly a few huge figures emerged from the shadows of the ruins of the ancient city, about 10 meters long, like a sea snake and a dragon. The slightest flashed with cold light, and the sound was so loud that my ears were almost roaring. Damn it! What's this thing? I widened my eyes and was completely stunned. But those few sea blasts ignored me and directly rushed towards Carl's subordinates. They were as fast as flashes, biting each one, making them no chance to resist. In the blink of an eye, a large area was cleaned up. Ha ha! Great! Who dares to sway my Sea Blast team? As I watched this scene, my hands trembled. I was just chased like a dog, but now I crushed the helper with just one move. I feel so simple that I don't feel too good. Don't be too early to wake up. This is just a low-level state of the guardian beast. The real power has not completely woken up. Xiaomei gasped, her face not so relaxed. She pointed to the crystal and spoke solemnly. Based on my research, the real guardian of Atlantis is still sleeping deeper. What Carl wants is not these little monsters, but the existence, the undersea demon king. The demon king under the sea? I was shocked, and my heart was instantly filled with a basin of cold water. This name is not a good thing when you hear it. It is 80% stronger than these sea beasts. I was about to ask a few more words, but suddenly a stronger shock came from far away. The sea water seemed to be torn apart by something, and the shadows from far away became bigger and bigger, like a moving mountain, approaching us. Damn, this isn't the devil you're talking about, right? I numbed my head and clenched my fists, feeling that things were getting worse and worse. The vibration of the sea water became more and more intense, just like the entire seabed was about to be torn apart, and the bad premonition in my heart instantly amplified to the extreme. The moving black shadow far away was so stressful that it made people breathe. Even the extremely violent sea beast was still low, as if it had met a heavenly enemy, and began to surround the sacrificial tour uneasily. Lin Hao, prepare well. This may be our last chance. Xiaomei gritted her teeth, her voice trembling, but she still strongly decorated her, pointing to the blue crystal on the fort and said, "This crystal is the core of Atlantis. It can awaken the true guardianship in the passage, but it may also directly lead the demon king under the sea. Do you dare to take a chance? Care you? I'm here, can I still have a way out?" I gritted my teeth and glared at her. Although I was panicked, I also knew that it was not the time to be hesitant. Although Car's men were cleared by the sea, more diving boats and military personnel emerged from afar, and they were surrounded densely, which seemed to be heartbroken to kill us. And that black shadow. I thought it was not a good thing with my butt, and it would only make me more worried if I dragged it on. Okay, tell me, what's going on? I clenched my fist hard, and the sea god ring on my hand emitted a dazzling blue light, as if responding to my determination. Xiaomei pointed at the head and quickly operated the equipment on her hand. At the same time, she pointed to several runes beside the crystal and said, "These runes are activation passwords." I cracked part of them. If you activate it with the power of the ring, you should be able to maximize the guardianship. But remember, once the Demon King wakes up, we have to fight as hard as we can, otherwise no one will run away. Stop talking, it's all. I shouted without any hesitation and pressed my hand directly on the crystal. The blue light of the ring instantly formed with the crystal. The whole priest suddenly shook, as if something sleepy was awakened by the force. The surrounding sea water stormed wildly, and the rocks under the fort began to crack, creating a huge rumbling sound. Even I felt an indescribable pressure, which came straight from the depths of the sea, making my chest swell. Damn, what does this feel like? I gritted my teeth and squeezed, and a strange picture suddenly flashed through the sea of my brain. Like some ancient memory, countless people in strange robes knelt down at the fort, chanting spells that I couldn't understand. In the cracks in the seabed far away, a pair of red giant eyes slowly opened, radiating the horror of destroying the sky and the earth. Lin Hao, hold on. The power is gathering. Xiaomei's voice pulled me back to reality. I lowered my head and saw that the light of the crystal was as bright as a small sun. The sea water around the sacrificial fort formed a huge protection whirlpool, wrapping Xiaomei and me in it. The sea beasts seemed to have been summoned, and they roared and swung towards the dark shadows far away, as if they were ready to fight desperately. But at this moment, the dark shadows far away finally revealed their true colors. It was a big, hundreds of meters long, covered with black pieces, each piece as hard as a steel wire, with several sharp corners on its head, and the fangs in its mouth were thicker than those of a diving boat. The two ape red eyes stared at us, as if they could see through my soul directly. The undersea demon is really here. My skin was numb and my calves were trembling, but the ring on my hand seemed to be burning, which made me grit my teeth and squeezing hard. The monster growled, and the sound exploded on the bottom of the sea like thunder, which made my ears buzz. The surrounding sea beasts retreated for several 10 meters by the roar, and even the fierce robber just now was gone. Lin Hao, don't be stunned, control the sea water and give it a harsh blow. Xiaomei roared, and at the same time took out a small electromagnetic gun from her backpack. It was in the direction of the Demon King. The blue arc was plotted underwater, directly hitting the monster's piece, and a spark burst out. But the monster didn't shake it evenly, but just roared, and its tail suddenly swung, causing a terrifying wave of shock, directly slapped Xiaomei's gun for several 10 meters, and hit the ruins of the ancient city hard. Damn! Xiaomei! I saw her being photographed flying, and I felt anxious and couldn't help but be afraid. I suddenly raised my right hand and focused all my energy. There was only one thought in my brain: kill this guy. The next second, the sea water around seemed to hear my roar, and gathered wildly into a huge water blade, which was 100 meters long, flashing with the cold light, and slashed directly at the devil's brain. Room! The water blade slashed hard at the Demon King's head, making a huge sound that shocked the earth. Even the rocks on the seabed were shaken and several giants broke. But the monster just shook his brain, and there was no trace of the plot on the film. Instead, he rushed towards me even more angrily. Zhang Kai's bloody mouth was covered with black air, as if he was about to swallow me directly. Is this agile? I was so scared that I almost flew. I hurriedly slammed more sea water to form water walls, and tried to catch its impact. But the devil's strength was so great that the water wall was smashed one after another, and the fragments were 4 times. Even I was pushed back by the shock wave for several 10 meters. My chest was swelling and I almost vomited blood. Lin Hao, don't fight hard. Its power is not something you can compete now. Xiaomei's voice came from the communication device, carrying a few points of weakness, but she still shouted anxiously, I found an ancient mechanism to attract its attention with the sea beast, which should be able to weaken its power. Okay, hurry up, I can't hold it long. I roared with gritted teeth, and at the same time, the sea beasts seemed to have received an order and rushed towards the devil. Although one was shot, it finally stopped its steps, allowing me to catch my breath. I took the opportunity to regulate the sea water and formed a huge whirlpool, trapping the Demon King in it at a time, but I knew that this thing would not last long, and it would be able to slap in a few seconds or more. Lin Hao, Cars people are here again. Xiaomei suddenly shouted again. I turned around and looked, damn. The diving boats and armed personnel from the distance have been reassembled, and this time they have brought several heavy weapons, such as some high-tech fish thunder launcher, locking us directly in the direction of the sacrificial sustenance. These bastards, I'm going to take action when I'm busy. I was so angry that I was too tired, but I was also exhausted, so I could only focus on dealing with the Demon King first. As a result, Car's men shot several thunders directly, dragging white bubbles and rushing towards me, so fast that I couldn't hide completely. Bang! Bang! The thunder exploded around me, and the impact wave directly lifted me up. The diving suit was blown open several holes, and the sea water poured in coldly, making me tremble. What's even more terrible is that the devil took advantage of my distraction and suddenly swung the vortex, swung his tail and slapped at me directly, carrying the air that destroyed the sky and the earth, as if it could smash the entire seabed. It's over, I'm really going to hang up this time. I flashed this thought in my brain, but my body instinctively didn't want to give up. I gritted my teeth suddenly, and the light on the ring on my hand stormed. I tried my best to activate the surrounding sea water, forming a huge water shield, and pressed it in front of me. Room! The Demon King's tail slapped the water shield hard, and a huge sound came out. The water shield shattered instantly. I was shot for hundreds of meters and hit the stone pillars of the ancient city. It hurt so much that I almost passed. But the magical thing is that I am still alive. Although the light of the ring has dimmed a lot, there is still a warm energy supporting me, making me nervous. Lin Hao, the machine has been activated. Lead it to the center of the sacrificial supreme. Xiaomei's voice suddenly echoed, with a little excitement. I looked up nervously and saw that the blue crystal stone on the fort shone brightly, and the runes around me lit up, as if forming some kind of air method, emitting powerful energy waves. Okay, I'm fighting with you. I bit my teeth tightly, stood up and yelled at the devil, "Come on, Shuzi. Something is coming to kill me." At the same time, I thought of it, and only a few remaining sea beasts rushed towards the devil. Although they were not the opponent at all, they made it angry and turned toward me, with the murder in the red eyes. I tried my best to swim to the center of the sacrificial priest, and the roar of the devil behind me was getting closer and closer. I almost got caught by its claws several times, which made my heart almost jump out. Finally, the moment it opened its mouth and was about to bite it, I suddenly rushed into the center of the sacrificial fortress. The rune parades around it lit up instantly, and blue light columns rose up into the sky, trapping the devil in it like a prison. Roar! The devil roared in anger and rammed the light column, but the light column seemed to be incomparable and trapped it. Xiaomei swam from behind the ruins and gasped, saying, "This is the forbidden sacred paradise of Atlantis, which can weaken its power in a short time, but it can last for a few minutes at most. You have to give it a fatal blow now." A fatal blow? What do I take to beat me? I was so angry that I wanted to kill someone, but I had already squeezed my strength out of the past few times. Now I even raised my hand and I was free. But seeing the devil stomping in the pillar of light, I also understood in my heart that if I don't fuck it now, I will have to finish playing with Xiaomei when it gets sleepy. Use all the power of the ring. Xiaomei gritted her teeth, in the Atlantis saying, "The power of the sea god can condense the essence of the ocean and form a blow, but this may consume all your energy and even be in danger of life. Do you dare to try it?" What's there to dare? If I don't kill it today, I will be killed by it. I gritted my teeth, closed my eyes, and concentrated all my thoughts in my brain, feeling the energy in the ring exploded like a volcano, and the surrounding sea water began to gather wildly, turning into a huge blue ball of light, scattering the breath of destroying the sky and the earth. Go to die, monster. I suddenly opened my eyes, pushed my right hand, and the light ball directly hit the Demon King, as fast as flash. The sea water along the way was compressed into a vacuum, making a sharp sound. The Demon King seemed to feel the danger and let out a terrifying roar, but the light pillar trapped it and it couldn't hide at all, so he could only get this hit. Rumbling. The light ball exploded, and the seabed seemed to be detonated with a nuclear bomb. The slam wave directly drove the ruins of the ancient city to fly, and even Kar's subordinates were affected. The diving boats exploded into pieces, and screams came one after another. The figure of the Demon King was completely swallowed by the blue light, and he let out a last unwilling roar. The huge body began to disintegrate, turning into countless black fragments, dissipating in the sea water. It's done. I gasped and felt like my whole body was hollowed out, and I couldn't even move my fingers. I could only sit on the sacrificial for a while and look at the chaotic sea. The monster that was so happy in my heart that I was so stressed that I couldn't breathe. Now that I was fucked by one move, I felt so simple that I was too awesome. But before I could be more proud, Xiaomei suddenly shouted, "Lin Hao, Kar's main force has arrived." They have stronger weapons, run. I turned around and saw that in the far sea, several huge jellyfish ships were approaching us. The weapons on it looked different from ordinary goods at first glance. The energy fluctuations that locked us made people's skin numb. Damn, these guys really don't have the chance to breathe. I gritted my teeth and reluctantly stood up. I knew in my heart that I really couldn't escape this time. But at this moment, the crack under the sacrificial accident suddenly shook again, and a stronger breath came from deep, as if something was finally awakened by the battle just now. The cracks under the sacrificial supreme became more and more intense. The strong breath seemed to be able to tear the entire seabed, which made my heart tighten, and the excitement of the demon king who defeated the seabed was instantly faded. I gasped heavily, reluctantly lifted up, looked down at the crack, and there was a blue light flash inside, as if something was about to break out of the ground. Lin Hao, this may be the final treasure of Atlantis. Xiao Mei swam to me, with a few excitement in her voice, but more of it was tight. She pointed to the crack and gasped, in the story, after the devil is defeated, the real sea god's power will wake up completely, and the zodiac will appear, but this may also be Carl's final goal, and they will not let us go. Zong? I'm almost gone now, so I'm not worried about Cao Zong. I glared at her with no worries, but I also understood in my heart that I had no choice at all. The main force of faraway Car has approached, and the muzzle of the jellyfish is flashing with cold light, which can turn us into slag at any time. And what's in this crack might be my only chance to flip the plate. Okay, take a look. Xiao Mei, please help me drag it out for a while, I'll go down and take a look. I said with gritted teeth and clenched, and swam towards the crack. Xiao Mei took out several small interferers from her backpack and threw them towards Carl's mother ship. The interferers exploded underwater, emitting an electromagnetic wave, which temporarily made their weapons lock and lost their spirit. Hurry, I won't be on top for long. Xiao Mei shouted, gritted her teeth, and hid behind the ruins of the ancient city to avoid the attack of several fish thunders. I didn't waste my time and pierced directly into the crack. The sea god ring on my hand shone brightly, as if guiding me forward. The sea water in the crack was biting cold and could be seen so low that I could hardly reach out to see my 5 fingers, but I could feel a warm energy coming from the ring, protecting me from being crushed by the water. After swimming about 10 meters, the crack depth suddenly opened up, and a huge underground space appeared. A light blue treasure box floated in the center, and countless small light spots were surrounded, like the essence of the ocean condensed. The surface of the treasure box is engraved with ancient runes, exactly like the pattern on the sacrificial forum, emitting a suffocating force. Damn, this is Baozan? My eyes were straight, and my heartbeat was as fast as a drumbeat. But before I could get close, the sea water around the treasure box suddenly stormed and condensed into a huge shadow, like some ancient guardian spirit, with a low voice in the brain, "Sincere, you have defeated the demon king and prove your own courage. Do you want to accept the final attempt of the sea god to become the lord of the ocean? Try it. It's still over." I cried in my heart, but I also knew that I couldn't retreat. I gritted my teeth and shouted, "Come on, I've answered all the tricks." The virtual sounded as if satisfied, and then turned into a blue light and diamond directly into my body. In an instant, I felt like my whole body was struck by lightning. The pain almost made me scream, but then, an unprecedented force rushed into the ring, as if the entire ocean was listening to me. My consciousness could even sense every drop of sea water and every fish swimming a few kilometers away. Damn, is this the power of the sea god? I looked down and saw that the ring on my hand was as bright as the sun, and the sea water around it was dyed blue, and the whole person seemed to have become part of the ocean. I let my hand off at will, and the rocks around the crack were instantly compressed into powder, which was more than 10 times stronger than before. Ha ha ha, I'm really excited this time. I was so excited that my hands were shaking, but I didn't forget that there was still a lot of trouble outside. I tweaked the sea water suddenly, wrapped myself into the cracks, as fast as a rocket, and in the blink of an eye I returned to the top of the sacrificial priest. At this time, Carl's mother ship had approached within 100 meters, and several 10 high-energy muzzles matched Xiao Mei and me, and the gunfire could be rolled down at any time. Xiaomei hid behind the ruins, and her diving suit was broken for several times, and it seemed that she had just delayed her time and suffered a lot. Far away, a middle-aged man in luxury diving equipment stood on the deck of the Mother's Wall, sneering through the communication device. "Lin Hao, hand over the treasure, I can leave you all the slap, otherwise, this sea area is your tomb." "Carl?" When I heard this sound, Lima was furious. This guy was the mastermind behind the scenes, which made me die forever. I sneered and shouted at him, "Tomb? I will let you see it today. Who is the king of this sea? Let me fly into the seabed and feed fish." As the voice fell, I suddenly raised my right hand and concentrated my mind in the sea of my brain. The surrounding sea water instantly boiled, forming a super vortex that stretched thousands of meters straight, like a black hole under the sea, directly sucking Car's group of motherships in. Before those high-tech weapons could be opened, they were torn to pieces by the whirlpool. Carl's face changed drastically on the deck of the mother's ship and shouted, "Open the fire! Turn on the fire quickly! This kid is a monster! Monster, you are so big!" I snorted coldly, and with a swept my hand, a series of water blades suddenly burst out from the center of the vortex, like countless swords, cutting the mother's bear into pieces. Car's subordinates were unable to make any calls, so they were rolled into the seabed, with no residue left. Carl himself was tied up by a stream of water and pulled him in front of me. Through the diving mask, I could see the shock on his face. "Lin Hao. I'm fine. I can give you money and power, how much you can pay." Carl's voice was trembling, and he was as arrogant as he was. I looked at him with a sneer and said slowly, "Money? Power? I am the king of the ocean now. What do you want your broken things to fuck? Stop it, go down and help your subordinates." After saying that, I slapped my hand and a strong current of water directly slapped him into the deep seabed, and even bubbles did not appear. Looking at Carl's disappearing figure, I felt so happy. I had been chasing me for so long, but now I'm finally crushed into pieces by me. This kind of pleasure of revenge is so straightforward. "Lin Hao, you really did it." Xiaomei swam from behind the ruins, staring at me with wide eyes, her face full of disbelief. I grinned and patted my chest and said, "Of course. I am the inheritor of the sea god. I heard me now in the sea. Carl is over, and his financial power must also collapse. Who dares to mess with me?" Xiaomei was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, "It seems that I have no wrongdoers. Atlantis' secret was finally saved, and Carl's helper could never get involved in this again." She decided to do it and asked, "Where's the tang? What did you get?" I raised my hand and lit the ring, and smiled, "Zong? I am the biggest Zong. This ring is not different from me now. The power of the sea god is all on me, and there are also a bunch of ancient scrolls and crystals in the box. I have studied it all. But..." I glanced at her and changed my temper. "You have helped me a lot, and you are bound to be able to do this. When I go back, I will be able to share yours. How about it?" Xiaomei rolled her eyes and smiled and said, "Who cares about your good things? I just want to record the history of Atlantis so that future generations can know the legend of this seabed." "But, are you really going to go back? With your current ability, isn't it good to be an overlord as a seabed?" "Overlord? I hear it's pretty awesome, but I don't want to soak in the sea." I curled my lips, and suddenly flashed the broken little house in my hometown in my heart, and those who once looked down on me sneered in my heart. Of course I have to go back when I go back. I have to let those people see. That diving dive was now the king of the ocean. Who dares to say something again and give him a sea to flood his home? Xiaomei was so happy that she clicked and said, "Okay, then I'll go back with you, just sort out the research data and see how you put on your pussy." I laughed, but didn't respond, regulating the sea water wrapped around us, as fast as a flash, and directly slamming the surface of Shanghai. A few days later, we returned to the shore. I was wearing a broken diving suit, carrying a box of crystals and rolls from a traits. As soon as I stepped on the code, I attracted a lot of people to visit. Those who had scooped my waist now had wide eyes and muttered in their mouths, "Isn't this Lin Hao? Why did this happen? But when I slapped my hands and the sea water directly rolled up a 10-meter-high wave and slapped a broken ship beside the head of the code into pieces, everyone closed their mouths, and their faces were filled with shock and fear. "Lin Hao, what's wrong with you?" an acquaintance asked tremblingly, his eyes full of awe. I sneered and said lightly, "It's nothing, I just became the king of the ocean, and I was just playing around with it." "How about you, would you dare to say that I'm a waste in the future?" The guy hurriedly slammed his head and smiled and said, "I dare not, Brother Lin, you are the story of our sea. If anyone dares to refuse to accept it in the future, I will beat him up first." The people around them also agreed, and they were ashamed of something, which made me feel so comfortable. At the same time, news of the collapse of Carl's financial valves also spread, saying that their operations at the bottom of the sea were completely destroyed, and the funds broke down, and several major shareholders ran away and caught, which finally became history. And I, relying on the treasures of Atlantis and the power of the sea god, not only became a legendary figure in the coastal areas, but also formed a marine protection organization that protects the sea area on the surface, but actually used my power to shock those who wanted to attack undersea resources. "Lin Hao, you have been so happy this day." Xiaomei stood on the platform of my newly bought Sea View villa, holding a glass of juice in her hand, and chatting with a smile. I leaned against the sand, holding a glass in my mouth, and smiled, "Of course. I have become the current king of the ocean from a broken dive. Who can't convince me? In the future, this sea will be my ground. Who will fight and drown him?" Xiaomei shook her head and didn't say anything else, but just looked at the sea far away, with a little emotion in her eyes. And I closed my eyes and recalled this life and death experience in my brain, from being chased to Counterattack, from beating the Demon King to crushing Car. Every scene was as exciting as a movie. Now, all the enemies are trampled under my feet. The secret of Atlantis belongs to me. The power of the ocean heard my order. This feeling was so straightforward. Who will dare to mess with me in the future? I muttered in a low voice, and a domineering smile appeared on the corner of my mouth. This sea, from today on, is my world.